She texted you twice yesterday. You didn't reply. This morning, she sent a voice note. You left it on delivered, and right now, right at this exact moment, she is sitting somewhere, phone in hand, staring at your name and her contacts, trying to figure out what she did wrong, trying to figure out if you're okay, trying to figure out why someone who used to reach out every single day just went silent. Here's what nobody tells you about going quiet. It doesn't just affect her, it triggers something ancient inside of her, a psychological process that's been running in human beings for thousands of years. And if you don't understand what that process is, you'll either break it too soon or push it so far that you damage something that can't be repaired. Welcome to PsyCraft Daily, the channel where we break down the real psychology behind attraction, behavior, and the choices that actually move people. Today we're going deep into what silence does to a woman's mind when you stop reaching out without warning. Let's say you and this woman, call her Priya, have been talking for 3 weeks, maybe 2 months, maybe longer. The contact has been consistent. Good mornings, random memes, late-night conversations. There's a rhythm. And rhythms, whether we notice them or not, become emotional infrastructure. Then you stop. In the first 24 hours, Priya isn't panicking yet. She's rationalizing. He's probably busy. He had that thing with work. He'll text tomorrow. The mind doesn't jump to worst case first. It protects itself. It creates little explanatory stories that make the absence feel manageable. But here's what most people miss. While her conscious mind is making excuses, her subconscious is already paying attention, already scanning, already asking, is something different? Think about this for a second. Humans are pattern recognition machines. We don't just notice patterns, as we feel it physically when a pattern breaks. There's an actual neurological response, a mild activation of the threat detection system when something that was predictable suddenly becomes unpredictable. By hour 36, if nothing has come through, the rationalization starts cracking. She checks your social media. Not obviously that she's not going to like anything, but she's checking, seeing if you've been active, if you posted a story, if you're clearly alive and just choosing not to reach out. And this is where it gets interesting. If she sees that you're active, that you watched a story, posted something, responded elsewhere, the confusion graduates into something sharper. Because now it's not, he's busy. Now it's, he's choosing not to contact me. That's a completely different experience emotionally. That shift from confusion to awareness is the beginning of the psychological process that makes silence so powerful and so dangerous if handled wrong. So, what do you do here? Nothing. Genuinely nothing. This phase requires you to resist. The pull to check if she noticed, to peek at whether she viewed your story, to send a casual message just to see how she is. The moment you break in this window, you reset the entire process back to zero and actually lose ground because now she knows the silence wasn't intentional. It was just a lapse, and a lapse carries no weight. Around day 3, something shifts dramatically. The confusion has settled. She knows you're alive. She knows contact is possible. And she still hasn't heard from you. Now her brain does something fascinating. It starts auditing the relationship. Every significant moment you shared gets pulled up and examined from a new angle. Conversations she barely thought about before suddenly feel important. Something you said 3 weeks ago that she dismissed gets replayed. There's a psychological concept called perspective reframing through absence. It's the idea that we don't fully process the value of something while we're in the middle of it. We need distance. We need a gap. The gap forces evaluation. Think about it from your own experience. How many times have you only realized how good something was after it was gone? The job, the apartment, the friendship that faded. You weren't walking around every day thinking, man, this is incredible. But the moment it disappeared, suddenly you could see it clearly. That's exactly what happens in her mind right now. She's not just thinking about you. She's thinking about the version of herself she was when you were around. Did she feel good? Did she feel seen? Did she take it for granted? This is where your silence becomes a mirror she holds up to herself, not just to you. Now, here's what most people miss about this phase and why they ruin it. A lot of guys, when they go silent, are secretly hoping she reaches out so they can feel validated. And when she doesn't reach out immediately, they assume it isn't working, so they fold. They send a casual, "Hey, been a while," and destroy the entire introspective process before it finishes. The introspection phase takes time. You're essentially asking her mind to do a complete re-evaluation of something while the emotions are still live. That doesn't happen in 48 hours. It needs room to breathe. So what do? Use this time to actually become someone worth thinking about. Not performing on social media, not posting cryptic things. Actually invest in yourself. Work out. Reconnect with friends. Start the thing you kept putting off. This isn't a manipulation tactic. It's about making sure that if and when contact resumes, you're showing up as someone who's been living, not someone who's been waiting. Let me show you how this actually works, because most scripts on this topic skip over the most psychologically significant part. Around day 5 to 7 of no contact, depending on the depth of the connection, there's an anxiety spike. Not mild unease, an actual notable emotional disruption. Here's why it happens. The brain runs on what psychologists call prediction error systems. When reality keeps matching our expectations, we feel stable. When reality diverges from expectations significantly and repeatedly, the brain signals distress. It's the same mechanism that fires when you're driving a familiar route and suddenly the road is closed. Your body reacts before your mind catches up. She expected contact. Contact didn't come. Then it didn't come again. And again. The prediction error has compounded to a point where her nervous system is now actively involved. This is the phase where women reach out. Not all of them, but many. The "hey, you okay?" text, the random meme that's an excuse to open a conversation. The reaction to your story that's actually a signal. These aren't coincidences. They're the nervous system finding a way to resolve the disruption. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets really interesting. How you respond to that reach out determines everything that follows. If she sends you something and you instantly reply with warmth and normalcy, like nothing happened, you've communicated that the silence meant nothing, that it was passive, not intentional. And she'll file that away. She'll know that next time she wants your attention, she just has to wait you out. You haven't created value. You've just confirmed that you're available on demand. The right response, and this takes actual emotional discipline, is to be warm but measured, engaged but not hungry. You respond like a man who's been living a full life and is genuinely happy to hear from her, not like someone who's been watching his phone for days waiting for exactly this. Short, present, a little playful, and then you let the conversation breathe again. You don't immediately try to make plans or escalate. You let the momentum build naturally. So, what do you do in this moment? Match her energy without exceeding it. If she sends a light message, reply lightly. Don't flood the conversation with everything you've been holding back. The silence built tension. Preserve some of it. Tension is what makes reconnection feel electric rather than routine. Here's something nobody talks about. During silence, she doesn't just think about you. She constructs stories about you, about what you're doing, about why you stopped, about what it means. And there are basically 3 narratives available to her. The first, he's moved on, he found someone else, he lost interest. This narrative activates grief and sometimes a protective withdrawal. She starts pulling back emotionally to soften the blow she thinks is coming. The second, he's going through something. Life got heavy. This isn't about me. This narrative keeps the door open but removes her agency. She's waiting on circumstance rather than engaging with the dynamic. The third, and this is the one you want, something shifted for him. Maybe he realized he was too available. Maybe he's taking himself more. Seriously, I'm not sure where I stand and I want to find out. The third narrative creates curiosity, and curiosity is the engine of attraction. It's the thing that makes her want to close the gap. Not neediness, not desperation. Genuine, alive curiosity about where you are and what you've become. The narrative she lands on depends almost entirely on who you were before the silence started. If you'd been chasing, over-texting, always available at a moment's notice, the most likely story she tells herself is number 1. The absence just confirms what the behavior was already communicating, that the dynamic was unbalanced, and now the imbalanced party has retreated. But if you were engaged but grounded, present but not clingy, interested but clearly living a life, the silence reads differently. It reads like intention, like a man who knows his own worth and is being deliberate. Think about that. Let that sit for a moment. The silence doesn't create the narrative on its own. It amplifies whatever narrative your behavior already set up, which is why going silent as a reactive move, as a way to punish, manipulate, or force an outcome, almost never works. She can feel the desperation underneath it. The silence has a different texture when it comes from insecurity versus when it comes from self-respect. So, what do? Before you ever consider going quiet, get right with yourself first. Not to look a certain way, but because the silence only means something if you actually are someone. If you're using it as a chess move, she'll sense it. If it's a natural byproduct of you reclaiming your own space, it carries weight. Here's the truth that most people in this space won't say out loud because it doesn't fit the simple narrative. Silence has a window, and if you miss the window, you don't get a second peek, the anxiety spike, the introspection, the curiosity. These are not permanent states. The human mind is adaptive. It's designed to move on. If the silence stretches too long, without any signal, her mind does what it's built to do. It updates its model of reality and adjusts accordingly. She stops checking, not dramatically. There's no announcement. She just slowly stops expecting. The checking becomes less frequent. The replaying of memories fades. Other things fill the space. Life continues. And one day she realizes she hasn't thought about you in 3 days. And that realization doesn't hurt the way it used to. And that's when the window is closed. The window length depends on the depth of the connection, the history, and the strength of whatever existed before. A 2-week talking stage, the window is short. A year of genuine closeness, longer, but every connection has one. Here's what gets really interesting, and this is the part that changes how you think about all of this. The window is not just about time, it's about signal. She's not waiting for a specific number of days to pass. She's waiting for evidence of who you are, evidence that the silence was meaningful, not just distance for distance's sake, which means the question isn't really, how long should I go silent? The question is, what am I communicating with this silence, and am I living in a way that makes the eventual reconnection worth having? If the answer is yes, if you've genuinely invested that time in yourself, in growth, in becoming more grounded and more alive, then when you do reach back out, the conversation carries real weight. There's actual substance underneath it, and she can feel that. Let's be honest for a second. Sometimes you stop reaching out and she doesn't come back. Sometimes the silence confirms what she was already feeling, that the connection had run its course, and that outcome, as uncomfortable as it is to sit with, is actually useful information. The silence doesn't manufacture attraction where none exists. It doesn't turn indifference into obsession. What it does, when it comes from a real place, is clarify. It creates the conditions for genuine desire to emerge, or for both of you to realize that the connection was thinner than it seemed, and that clarity is worth more than any manufactured outcome. Because a woman who reaches back out after genuine silence, who comes back because she actually missed who you are and how you made her feel, that's a completely different dynamic than one who returns because you played the right moves at the right time. One is real. One is a performance. The goal was never to win a game. The goal was always to build something honest. And sometimes silence is the most honest thing you can offer. A pause long enough to let both of you see clearly. So, stop asking how to use this to get her back. Start asking who you're becoming in the quiet. That's the shift. That's always been the shift.